What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And today, it's a special one. It's the Sheehan Show 2024 Yearly Awards. And it's I think I've done bits and pieces of awards before. I think this is the first award show proper, if you want to put it that way. And you know what? I'm going to do a bit of a mix of an awards show here because, as everyone knows, the Sheehan Show is a bit of a different show. You know, I concentrate an awful lot on your PFLs, your Bellators, your Cage Warriors, your Octagons, KSWs, and other places like that. So what I'm going to do is kind of split these awards. I'm going to do the Fab 5, first of all, which is your worldwide top awards, your female fighter of the year, your male fighter of the year, your fight of the year, your KO of the year, and your submission of the year. So I'm going to do those 5, and I'm going to do the Sheehan specials after that. So a few of your normal type of awards, but most of them are different. So I don't have that many awards, maybe 10 awards, and this is not... You know, when I'm looking here at the fighter of the year, the female fighter of the year, knockout of the year, I'm looking at the top of the top, the best of the best. And I'm involved with, obviously, Sherdog with the awards and Severe May, and we take them very, very seriously. Obviously, Irish awards and Severe May as well. We've been doing them for a decade, and I'm kind of the one who runs them. And on Sherdog, we take them very, 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 very seriously. The first 5 here, I've taken very seriously, and the rest are... Some are light-hearted, some are serious and deserved, and some are... These are maybe not... If you put 10 people in the room together, they'll all come up with this. This is a Sean Sheehan vote. So the last few, the first 5, okay, legit. The ones after that are my calls, right? And no one else was involved. It was all me, and a lot of them are like, who I think maybe deserves a bit of a... You had a good year. Who do I think maybe a lot of people who don't tune into maybe every event wouldn't have seen? Who do I think doesn't deserve, you know, someone who deserves maybe a little bit of a pat in the back where they usually don't get a pat in the back, like someone like myself, you know, been around doing this for fucking 15 years now. Someone comes around, you know, they've been doing it for 6 months. Oh, that fella's great, but the fella's been there for 15 years, very rarely gets the only, you know, pat in the back. So I'm gonna thank some of those people, as well as some of the newer people, as well as some of the higher performing people, and all of that. So let's get into them. Let's start with the Fab 5, and I'm going to start with the female fighter of the year, because I think, and I'll be honest, my Fab 5, I think they're all straightforward. I think they're all very straightforward. So female fighter of the year, do you know what? This is one of the most straightforward votes, I think, of the year, and it's Dakota Ditcheva. What a year she had. Absolutely unbelievable. I remember speaking to Dakota at this time last year. Obviously, she fought in PFL Europe and won that and dominated it. And it was on in Ireland. So I asked her the question afterwards. You can look it up. It's on video everywhere. It's like, you know, are you the best fighter in the world right now? And she kind of like, no, that's down the line. I'm not kind of not there yet. And now there's a lot of people saying she is the best fighter in the world. Now, I had a bit of a back and forth with different people about the breakthrough fighter of the year and who I think breakthrough fighter of the year should be. And a lot of people had it for Dakota. I actually think last year was her breakthrough year, because, you know, I'm not saying I'm some sort of soothsayer or something, but anyone who saw Dakota Ditcheva this time last year knew how good she was. What this year did proved it. It just showed it. You know, it's it was a year that. And that may sound simple, right? That may sound very simple. It's way more difficult for her to go out and actually do that, right? It's easy for someone like me to look at her and go, Jesus, she's unbelievable. She has 4 more fights. They're all unbelievable. And go, geez, she's unbelievable again. But it's not that easy to prepare, cut the weight, keep in shape, don't get injured, and do all of that. So it was a fantastic year for her. And this one, as I said, a no-brainer. Because if you look at some of the other nominees for Female Fighter of the Year, you know, Cyborg, Zhang Weili, Juliana Pena, Manon Fiorot, Jen Jidoba, Natalia Silva, Kayla Harrison, Robertson, right? I would say that split between didn't achieve as high as Dakota Ditcheva, weren't as impressive as Dakota Ditcheva, or just didn't have enough fights. So Zhang Weili only 1 fight against Yan. Great fight, but not enough. Compared to like Dakota Ditcheva beat Talia Santos, and 3 other people as well. You know? Juliana Pena, close decision, good win, but only 1 fight. Cyborg, Relatively close decision, good win, but again, only one fight. Firo, good win, only one fight. Harrison, a couple of good wins, but in my opinion, she didn't blow the socks off me the exact way that Dakota Ditcheva did last year, but more so this year. She was unbelievable. I actually think as well, Jenna Bishop is an underrated fighter, and the way she took her out, the way she took Talia Santos out, she was by far and away the fighter of the year. If you break everyone else down, it's, there's no contest. Again, in the UFC, it was a year that was very, very, very slow for women's MMA. Only one title fight in all the divisions, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, PFL, this was their main tournament this year, and the tournament was absolutely fantastic. Cage Warriors actually did a good job this year, bringing through Kennedy Freeman and a few others. Kennedy Freeman should probably be up there as well and get a mention. It was a tough year for one. Stamp was out injured for the whole year. Obviously with Bellator, Liz Carmouche was the champion over there. She came over and she ended up losing in the end. Obviously, Cyborg was the champion and she won, and she's up there as well. But I don't think that there is another valid opinion. I really, really don't. Dakota Ditcheva, by far and away the female fighter of the year, and she leads off the Sheehan Show Awards for this year. Right, let's talk about the male fighter of the year. And again, this is pretty straightforward. It's Ilia Topuria. And I was writing up my my awards over in Severe Med the other day, and over there we do them as a vote. Usually we used to do them as a vote, but this year we all got together in a Zoom and kind of argued it out and got the winner. And we did that, and it's my job to kind of write out the article. And I wrote, you have to give a little bit of a reasoning. And my reasoning was, Ilia Topuria knocked out Volkanovski at UFC 298. He knocked out Holloway at UFC 308. End of discussion. Like, it's hard to think, and I'm sure there are some people who've knocked out some great guys in a year, finished some great guys in a year, but to knock out Volkanovski and Holloway, I don't think it's too far to say two all-time greats in 1 year. It's colossal, it's magnificent, it's huge. And some other people maybe had great years and had more wins and maybe more finishes or whatever, but not with the quality. Like Alex Pereira is obviously the closest, I would say, to Pereira. He knocked out Hill, Prochazka, and Khalil Roundtree, but none of the three of them pale in comparison to Volkanovski and Holloway in terms of what they've done throughout their careers. All good fighters, two obviously ex-champions, two top fighters, and Khalil Roundtree put up a great fight against Pereira. But to me, it's good enough for number two, but not for number one. Some others, I think Makhachev obviously had a great win, but again only won against Poirier. Duplessis had a great year beating Strickland and Izzy. Again, two former champions, but Strickland and Izzy are not Volkanovski and Holloway. I don't think you could argue that. Even the biggest Izzy fans, I don't think would argue that, because Strickland isn't there. Bilal, obviously, Shamil Musayev, we'll talk more about him later on. He was right up there as well. The quality of his wins were I'd say the quality of his wins were nearly second, to be honest, because he beat he won 4 fights and beat 3 guys. He beat the same one guy twice. Rug, obviously up there as well for beating Anatoly Malyakin. And Paul Hughes. When you beat someone, we're talking about now, these Fab 5, the first 5, we're talking about top level wins. And it's hard to think of someone on this list. I'm looking at my list here I have in front of me. And okay, someone who at the time wasn't a champion or at the time wasn't higher level, right? Then Paul Hughes beating AJ McKee. And if you're to look at it, someone who wasn't even in contention, it's not even close. Like let's say someone outside of the UFC top 15 or outside the UFC top 10 beat like the number 2 in the division, or beat the champion or whatever, or beat a former champion. No one got close to doing that except Paul Hughes this year. So I definitely think he's in with a shout. But no, Ilia Topuria, obviously, the male fighter of the year. And I'll be honest, pretty straightforward as well, the fight of the year. I don't think it was a classic year for fight of the year. The only issue with this fight is it was on PFL Europe, and it obviously wasn't broadcast live in the States. I think it went up afterwards. Actually, I was rewatching it the other day, bits and pieces of it, and I remember thinking, seeing, I think it was Luke Thomas and Ari Lawani tweeted out like the link on YouTube to it just afterwards and told people about it. But it's Lewis McGrillen Evans versus Dean Garnett, PFL Europe 3. This was by far and away, I think, the fight of the year. I think our guy Keith Chillen put up a good post earlier on in the week about Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje. Good fight, very good, but one-sided. You know, it was 3-1 at the time the fight ended. If it hadn't ended 1 second later, it would have been 4-1. I know one judge was wayward, I think, in the scores, but that doesn't mean it was a close fight. It wasn't a good fight, no doubt about it, but it was more of a domination than a great fight. I know a lot of people talked about Zell Hooper versus Ribovic. That's up there as well. I really had a soft spot for Pereira versus Roundtree. I really had a soft spot for Pantoja versus Erceg. Strickland versus Duplessis was a good fight. Rugrug versus Malyakin. Rival versus Tiara. Did I mention Makachev versus Poirier? That was a very, very good fight. But no. This was the true back and forth. You didn't know who was going to win. You didn't know when someone was going to get knocked out. It was it the most technical fight in the world? No. But if you show me a fight that was unbelievably technical for 3 rounds or 5 rounds and excited everyone technically for all that time, I'll call it the winner over this. I watch everything, and I didn't see it this year. I really, really didn't see it. So the Sheehan Show fight of the year is Dean Garnett versus Lewis McGrillen Evans. And there isn't a close second. There isn't a close second. KO of the year, Max Holloway. And we will be moving on. Submission of the year. that was a pretty easy one. Actually, can I mention just a few more KO of the year candidates? Because I think they mentioned it. We know who the winner is. Look, obviously Max Holloway knocking out Justin Gaethje, UFC 300. Up there for me with Impa Kasanganai's Joaquin Buckley's knockout of Impa Kasanganai a couple of years ago as the greatest knockouts of all time, and obviously Yair Rodriguez as well against the Korean Zombie. But some of the other ones, Alex Morgan over at Samurai with a right high kick, Danige against Andre Fili, Topuria against Volkanovski, Jacoby Smith against Jared McLaughlin at Fury FC, Vinicius Oliveira with a flying knee, Poirier against BSD, my own countryman Nathan Kelly had a vicious elbow at Bellator Belfast, Ribovic head kick against Terence McKinney, and the list goes on. There was a great one there a couple of weeks ago. Patrick Cabarora, PFL Europe, Islam Salikov's wheel kick, Shara Bullett's double spinning back fist, and Victoria Shiwezka at KSW 97 head kick KO. That was vicious. That was right up there as well. But it's obviously Max Holloway. It is obviously Max Holloway. And then finally in the Fab Five, and then we will move on to the Sheehan Show Specials, the submission of the year. And this one, honestly, I thought it was a good year for submissions as well. There was a lot of good ones. Makachev's darts against Poirier, Brian Ortega submitting Yair Rodriguez after he got injured in the introduction, and he lost the round one. A great comeback as well. Kevin Holland's armbar against Mikhail Olejniczuk. Victoria Souza hit a great guillotine over at one championship, big underdog. Paddy Pimblett, his triangle armbar against Bobby Green. Kazama got a great triangle choke at UFC Vegas 95. Jack McGuire got a triangle as well at Octagon 62. But the winner it has to be Hamza Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker, UFC 308. Like, when you watching it live, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that was a bit of a fast tap there or something. As well as I put in, you saw the aftermath and the way he literally cracked open his jaw. It was one of the most vicious submissions we've seen in a long time. And a lot of them are great. A lot of good submissions here. I think when something like that happens, you have to give it. And I think that was the submission of the year for me. Sheehan Show submission of the year. Right, let's get to the Sheehan specials. And we're going to start with 2 bets. We're going to start with the best bet, and we're going to go to the worst bet. And they both happen really, really regularly. I spent the last 10 or 15 minutes there before we started. These are 2 I picked out, and I'm like, okay, maybe I have a bit of recency bias here. And I went back, and I think these are them. I think were these on the same card? I think they might have only been a week apart, if not. But the best bet of the year, I gave you and these bets that I gave you in the Sheehan Show. Bryce Mitchell at plus 700 to knock out Cron Gracie, which he did. And the worst, we'll talk about that one first, quickly. It was one of those bets that the fight didn't go necessarily as I thought, but what I said on the build-up, I remember, is Mitchell will either have him on the feet and force him to fight on the feet and knock him out, or Cron Gracie will get so desperate that he keeps putting himself in a position where Mitchell will eventually ground upon him out of there. And there was a slam slightly before the ground about, but I think that was accurate. So the plus 700 bet, and on my bookies, which is really bad, I got it at plus, what did I get it at? And I bet it myself as well, which made it even sweeter. Plus 650, I think I got it at. And it was actually a special that it was either one to win by knockout. So that was really good. Or Cron wasn't going to do it though, but it was plus 700, that bet to start off. Great bet there. Worst bet of the year, I gave Timba Garimbo to beat Vicente Luque. And I believe he was the favourite. And I remember giving it and I'm thinking, yeah, Luque didn't look amazing recently. Timba looked a little bit better in his last fight, although the fight before that, not amazing. But, maybe changing the guards. And the sooner the fight came, and I remember, I think I was listening to my guy Ian O'Neill talking about it, maybe in his preview show or something like that. And I was listening to a few preview shows, actually. I was listening to the lads, Shillian and Duffy at the time, talking about it as well. And every word I heard about it was like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? And this, as the fight came along, I was like, Luque is definitely going to win this. I remember I went to bed early that night and got up and I saw the results the next morning. I was like, you goddamn idiot. It was just, Garimbo is the exact guy in that situation where the experience was always going to win out. He just hadn't adjusted his game. He hadn't brought on his game enough. Now, it's not to say he won't do it in the future, but at this point, he just hadn't brought on his game enough to beat someone like Luque. And I knew that. And that's what I would like to think would separate me from some other people. Now, I'm not saying that I'm some sort of genius and know all or anything, but like that sort of thing, if I can't be picking that out, I've no business telling you who to bet on. Now, maybe you'll say I don't anyway, but that was a bad miss by me. A bad miss by me. And, yeah, I like to think, right, my bets, I every week I do a recap of last week's bets. And I'm like, either, right, I missaw that one, or nearly, or we were a bit unlucky, or it won. But I very rarely, I'm like, that was just complete idiocy for me. And this was one of them. So, my mea culpa on that. Right. I'm getting to the next three awards from the Sheehan Show are pat in the back, but well-deserved pats in the back. For two people and one organization that really, really, really deserve it. So I'm going to give my promotion of the year. And this is not necessarily like who had the best fights and who had the best fighters, and, if you were to line everyone up, who is the best promotion. And this is outside of the UFC as well. So none of these are in the UFC, right? The rest of them, because this is the Sheehan Show. The Sheehan Show doesn't talk about the UFC. Octagon are getting the Sheehan Show promotion of the year. And I'll tell you why. Because they have done three things. They've paid the fighters well and put on big shows. They have made fun fights and made me interested in them. All right? And they have improved at every turnaround. And what I mean by that is, I think the commentary is really good and better than it was. I think the fight roster is better and improved than it was. I think I'll be honest, and maybe the promotion or the promoters or this won't like me saying it, but they went to the UK. I think they made a mistake. They went to venues that were too big and all that. And do you know what they did? They stopped doing it. They're like, no, we're not going to do that for a while. Let's pull out. Let's go back. Let's go to the Czech Republic. Let's go to Germany. Let's do our events there. And let's not lose money hand over fist doing something stupid. Now, could they go back again? Could they bring one to Ireland maybe even? Yes, I definitely think it's something they could do again in the future, but I think they'll be smarter about it, and that's very, very, very good. That's a very good sign. And you know from the way this, I don't know, I couldn't even tell you the people who are in charge. And I was talking to Brian the other day, when am I recording this? It'll probably be out around the same time as this. I don't know. My times around Christmas are back, but we were doing the preview for the upcoming KSW card. It's all on around the same time anyway. And he mentioned their names, and he mentioned some smart things that they've done. And he mentioned also that these lads will put on fights and put on events that may cost them a little bit more money, but they know they're the right thing to do to invest in the future. And that's right. The wrong thing to do would be to waste money going to places you can't sell tickets in. And we've seen probably every promotion down through the years who died do that. So fair play to them for not doing that. But the positives, like, you know, I recorded this just before, but like Will Fleury Vermola, the $1 million or the $300 tournament that they put on, $300,000 tournament they put on, to get the two lads that were in the finale of that, absolutely huge, right? They have signed some great fighters like the likes of Adi Sardari, a lot of the older Cage Warriors fighters as well. They've kind of taken a lot of lads there, and they've just done a great job, a really, really, really good job. I like the fact that they've given people kind of second chances, but lads who are very good fighters, and they matchmake guys as well. Even look at Kite Brito coming back from the Contender Series. They put him in there in a really tough fight against Jan Sardo, and he ends up losing it. There's no problem. Like, that's really good stuff. I honestly, at every move this year, Octagon have done great stuff. And do you know what I would love? There's someone out there. If you have a TV channel or a streaming platform or something, get Octagon on it, because they're the type of promotion that people want to see, and they do absolutely fabulous work. Absolutely. And do you know what? I've obviously been recording a lot of my my reviews of the year and stuff. And I think inside the cage, right, as fights themselves and all, I actually think all of the promotions have done a great job this year. I think Cage Warriors have been phenomenal. They've put on some great fights, some great fighters and all of that. I think PFL, I loved the season. I think PFL Europe season was brilliant. I really enjoyed what they did with PFL MENA. I think KSW had a great year. Look at the recent shows they did, Paranas over in Paris and all of that. You know, maybe because obviously Bellator is with PFL now, and obviously Bellator, you know, I think that'll probably change from next year. So you could say Bellator didn't have a great year. One Championship didn't have a great year, I suppose. You know, the very few MMA and their biggest star didn't fight. You know, but the other ones, I think it was a good year. I really do. I think I'd be very pleased with all of them. So, promotion year, I'm giving it to Octagon. I'm giving it to Octagon because I think they deserve the pat on the back, right? Matchmaker of the year, another person who deserves a pat on the back, Ian Dean, over at Cage Warriors. Like, so, you look at the top of Cage Warriors, and you see the title fights they put on, and there's a lot of things. So in Cage Warriors, right, they have an issue because in their this is I think Graham Boylan said this before, but in their contracts basically they have, if you want to sign for the UFC, you know, the UFC can sign you. They have a UFC out, and a lot of the fighters going to the UFC are going to Tough, are going to the Contender Series, and maybe so Indian's a matchmaker, and maybe they have a champion. And maybe the Contender is just on the way as on the title shot, and boom, signed to the UFC. Then you have to find someone else, and maybe it's on short notice or whatever it might be. And then he pulls in someone who, you know, this guy had one fight in Octagon a few years ago, and maybe he's won 5 in a row now. And I might have seen him, you know, I don't really know him. And next he goes in there and he goes 5 rounds with the champion and he wins the belt, or he, you know, goes very close and he's unearthed to the star. He does that so often, right, at the very, very top of the game. And that's exactly what you need in that sort of promotion. And then the other thing you need in that sort of promotion, and this is something maybe a lot of people listening to this, right, or a lot of people who just watch the top of the UFC, or maybe the top of the PFL, and maybe the odd Cage Warriors, Octagon, KSW card wouldn't think of. And because I obviously covered Irish MMA now for a good while, and look at a lot of the young pros as well over in Severe MMA, I kind of take a closer look, obviously, at the matchmaking of the younger pros. And the way Ian Dean match makes the younger pros is insanely smart, intelligent, and professional. And I'll give you an example of two recently. Two Irish pros coming through. Two of the top young pros in the world, I would say, coming through. Conor McCarthy, he's under the tutelage of Peter Queally. He's is he 3-0 or 4-0 now? I think still 3-0 or 4-0. And he's 4-0 now because he came into the promotion of Cage Warriors at 3-0, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, around there. And he's the sort of guy that if anyone listening to this has seen him fight, you would know that it'd be very hard to find another 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 guy who could go in there with him and not get obliterated, right? So what did Ian Dean do? He got a guy who was, I think maybe 7-4 or something like that. You know, he's 10, 12, 13 fights into his career with mostly wins, with good performances, a dangerous guy, and he puts him in there with Conor McCarthy because he knows it's going to be a test. He knows that someone like Conor McCarthy is good enough to fight someone like that. Solomon Simon is the other one, who's 5-0 now, fighting out of Andy Ryan's Team Rhino gym in Ireland from Waterford, and he's as I said 5-0. But you might look at a 5-0 guy and think, okay, or he was 4-0 at the time, give him another 4-0 guy, a 3-0 guy, you know, maybe 5-1, 6-1 type of thing. But they put him in there with Walter Cogliandro, who is 21 fights deep in his career. And why did that happen? Well, Solomon Simon has been fighting as an amateur for like 8 years or something like that. Solomon has about 30 amateur fights. So if you put him in there with someone who's 3-0, 4-0, it's not going to be right. They will not, unless it's someone special as well. They're not going to have what he has. And Ian Dean knew that, and he made the right match. And what happened? Both of those guys won. Solomon Simon now at 5-0. People are talking about him fighting for a title. And let's see what Ian Dean does next. And do you know what I think he'll do? The right thing. And that's why he wins the Sheehan Show Matchmaker of the Year, because he does the right thing all the time. And do you know what? I'll give credit to Graham Boylan as well, because a lot of people are giving out with him. Do you know, he's a promoter, he's the manager and all. And I'll tell you this, I have too much respect for Ian Dean to say that a match would be made that he doesn't sign off on and think it was good. You know, and I've watched this and looked at it very closely for many years. And the way Ian Dean match makes, the way Cage Warriors match make is very good. Very, very, very good. And the way it should be done. So, credit to Ian Dean, Matchmaker of the Year. Right. Here's a few odd ones, I suppose. I'm going to give you, again, Sheehan Show Awards. Here is your regional champion of the year. So this is your PFL Mina's, PFL Europe's, Cage Warriors type of place. I'm going for Mohsen Mohamed Shafi, who won PFL Mina. He fought 3 times this year, defeated Josh Togo with a knockout, and had 2 decision wins over Sahul Tahiri and George Aid. He's a little bit older. He's 35 years of age. He's 7-2 now in his career. He lost his first 2 fights of his career back in 2019, and he's won 7 since. But I was really impressed with him this year. He showed me an awful lot, because you look at some of his earlier fights, and I've described him as a Hector Lombard type of fighter, and which is like, the fire hydrant, very, very, very good wrestler, and kind of throws hands, and maybe will rely on maybe his athleticism more so than anything. But what he showed throughout the years, he has that, he has power, but he also has intelligence. He's very good technically, and his cardio, especially in the last fight against George Aid, a guy who's a really good kickboxer, really, really, really looked good. And I thought he had a high level win in that fight. And I think as a guy at 155 pounds, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens, whether he's back in PFL Mina next year or where he goes and maybe fights in the PFL Global or whatever. But I was very impressed with him. Again, maybe you could pick out other guys at the similar level, maybe who are a better fighter, or maybe they're a bit younger and they might be a better prospect, who have won a belt, or the likes of James Sheehan obviously jumps out to me, but James had only kind of 1 fight this year as well, but and a very good one. But there's obviously a lot of others. I'd love to shout out James Webb here. He definitely deserves a shout out. And I could, again, if I kept shouting out people, I'd be there all day. But I was really impressed with Mohammed Saifi. A real soft spot for him. And I'm going to give him that award, the Sheehan Show Regional Champion of the Year. Regional Newcomer of the Year. There's a lot of guys here. And you know what? I was very tempted to go real biased here and go with a few Irish lads. I've gone for an Irish lad later on. We'll get to that in a second. But the regional newcomer of the year, I'm giving it to Sean Clancy Jr. Sean the One Clancy Jr. He had he debuted in Cage Warriors in 2023, but this was the year he really broke through. Went 3-0 in Cage Warriors this year, all 3 finishes. Beat Lopez, Aronov, and Augusto. And I'll tell you the difference between Sean Clancy Jr. and a lot of other people out there. He is a beast of an athlete. A rare athlete. And I remember looking at a couple of his earlier fights and thinking maybe he, his athleticism is too easy for him to use, and maybe I'll throw the jiu-jitsu part of it out there is lacking a bit, right? And in the last couple of fights, when we saw the jiu-jitsu parts of it, I think that has gone out the window very, very quickly. Obviously, he got a submission against Aronov, and there was a bits and pieces of ground game, and he looked very good, very, very, very good on the ground outside of that. This guy has it all. I think it's going to be a big 2025. I'm hearing there's big things coming. He's a good family behind him and a good team behind him in higher level over in Scotland. If you haven't seen this guy fight, he is a real beast over in Cage Warriors. So Sean Clancy Jr., the regional newcomer of the year. Okay, so now we have the same 2 awards, the champion of the year, the newcomer of the year, but for just above the regionals. So let's say your one championships, your PFLs, your Bellators, whatever else it might be, non-UFC, right? So and we'll call it the non-UFC champion of the year. And there, again, this could be a litany of people. I probably would have had it maybe as Dakota Ditcheva, but she's the female fighter of the year, and she let us off here. So I'll if I was given the female champion of the year, it'd be Dakota Ditcheva, but I'm given the male champion of the year, Shamil Musayev. I just think he's fantastic. I think this guy is an absolute beast. I mentioned him in the male fighter of the year. He beat Logan Storley, ate Logan Storley for dinner. He not only ate him for dinner, he kind of allowed Logan Storley to think like he had a chance, and then preyed upon that and destroyed Ramazanov. Then the second time, just like, do you know what? I'm not going to expend too much energy. Won the decision. And then beat Umalatov in one of the best fights outside the UFC we could ever see. And this guy is a beast. There's a lot of talk about who's the best welterweight in the world. And if you don't have this guy in the conversation, I think you're doing it wrong. He's without a shadow of a doubt one of the best welterweights in the world. And, you look at some of the other champions, obviously, that were crowned. Was high-level stuff here with Goltsov, Rabadanov, Yashimordov, obviously Ditcheva, and Kizriev as well was a standout. But for me, he's the guy. He is the guy. He's so good. It's hard to look past him, and he is the guy. He wins the award. He is the non-UFC champion of the year. Here's the Irish one. The non-UFC newcomer of the year is Paul Hughes, and it has to be Paul Hughes. Again, let me throw it out there. I think Paul Hughes did something this year that we haven't seen in modern MMA, and I'll go that far. Like, who else? Like some people, let's say Patricio was to sign for the UFC now, and let's say he's at lightweight and he fights Max Holloway and knocks him out, right? Or he fights, who would another example of someone be, Arman Saryukin and knocks him out, right? It'd be big, but that'd be a great win. He'd be the underdog and all, but it's still Patrice. He was the champion in a big organization in Bellator and everything like that. Or even Kayla Harrison coming over to the UFC. We know about Kayla and all that. But Paul Hughes came from a place where, Paul's still like an up-and-coming pro. He was talking about getting into UFC, 6 months ago to, win 10 fights to get ranked and win 15 to win the championship or something. What happens? But he had one fight, then fought AJ McKee, and not one fight against, Clay Collard or Bryn Primus or someone ranked number 5 to 10 or something like that. One fight against, was it Bobby King, who's a good guy, don't get me wrong, but he's not going to be ranked in the top 20. And he went straight to AJ McKee. Like, that jump is unlike anything we have seen in modern mixed martial arts. You're probably going back as far as Brock Lesnar to see something like that. And then Brock Lesnar is a different cat again. So I think what Paul Hughes, and actually yesterday I went back and I watched the fight, and it was a way more dominant fight than a lot of people would remember. He did so well in that. Absolutely marauding and brilliant and fantastic. And I can't say enough good things about Paul Hughes. And please, the non-Irish people out there, I'm calling this the non-UFC Newcomer, the non-Irish people out there, bask in the glory of Paul Hughes. Give Paul Hughes a bit of credit. Don't let it always be me. Don't let it always be the Irish. Paul Hughes deserves a bit of credit. Okay, we've 3 left. 3 awards left. And the next 2 are people to look forward to in 2025. And this is not, how would you put it? These are like, I think, people who could be not necessarily the next Paul Hughes, but maybe the next Ditcheva, or maybe the next surprise package that maybe if you looked back on it, there shouldn't be a surprise package. And here we go. So I'll give you a male and a female one. Jacob Kazuba. I said about the Sheehan Show Awards, there are a lot of pats on the back here. And does anyone in the Sheehan Show realm deserve as much of a pat on the back as Jacob Kazuba? He won PFL Europe 2023. He won PFL Europe 2024. He had one of the comebacks of the year against Conor Hughes. And to watch him and see what he does next year, because Kazuba now has done something that not many have done before. He's got through the seasonal tournaments. He knows how to navigate them, and he knows how to win them. And if he goes into the PFL Global next year against a lot of people, I think, here's a prediction. I think there's going to be a good few newcomers next year in the PFL Global lightweight tournament. And let's say he's one of them. And let's say maybe Paul Hughes is in it. There was talks of Mark Casey being in it. He has the experience over those guys, and it may be a few more, of being in that sort of format, knowing how to get through it. And do you know what else he is? He's a very good fighter. A very, very, very good fighter. So I'm very excited to see what happens with him. I'm also very excited to see if he is in the PFL Global next year, or if he's back in the PFL Europe, or maybe he's in the Champion Series or the Challenger Series or whatever. I'm excited to see where he goes, but he's definitely one to watch in 2025. And I think the PFL, what I would say to the PFL, I give them one bit of advice. They have a great product in PFL Europe, and they have a great product in PFL MENA. I think what they've done on them is great. Now use them. Use those fighters. Use Mohamed Shafi. Use Kazuba like you did with Ditcheva. Bring them to the next level, and let's see them become top-level fighters. And with that in mind, the other person I would say is Paulina Wisniewska, who won the 125-pound PFL Europe this year, which Ditcheva won last year, and she looked fantastic doing it. She looked really, really, really good doing it. Again, a lot of the talk after Ditcheva won is who's the next challenger, who's she going to fight, where's it going to be. And do you know what? I think a lot of that came from maybe people who didn't understand how good the tournament was this year. Because I'd have no problem putting a lot of them back in there again next year. Like, I think Juliana Velasquez versus Ditcheva is a good fight. I wouldn't mind seeing Ditcheva in there. Let's how she gets on with Liz Carmouche. Maybe they want to sign Danny McCormick and put her in there. Maybe that's someone. But also, I think Paulina Wisniewska. She's big. She's tall. She hits hard. She's not going to be afraid of Ditcheva. I would love to see him, if they could at all, Try to line them up side by side. And maybe if you were to make that the finale next year, the PFL 2023 champion versus the PFL Europe 2024 champion versus the PFL Global 2044 champion. Imagine if you could do that. That would be such an easy promotion, but also I think could be a real good fight, especially if Wisniewska is able to get through that. Now, maybe she isn't, and maybe, she goes in there against a Carmouche or a Velasquez or something like that and has issues. But if they were able to do that, and I'm not saying, again, there's no miracles here, right? But I'm saying if she has the opportunity, she's at a place now, as is Kazuba, where given the opportunity, they could go to the next level. So I think those are two for next year. I'd be very, very interested in looking there. And the last one here, do you know what? I like to end. Okay. I've changed it up. I'm adding two more. We're going commentator of the year. We're going judge of the year, and we're going referee of the year. Okay. Commentator of the year, Brad Wharton, and I'll tell you why it's Brad Wharton. And look, and this is obviously non-UFC. Shout out to John Ennick. Shout out to a lot. Do you know what? I give these three, and the reason I was given the commentator of the year is the same reason I'm giving a judge of the year, and the same reason I'm giving a referee of the year. These people get a lot of fucking abuse from me and from other people, and to do it at a level that produces quality all the time is not easy, because one, and with all of these, they're not easy jobs, and two, you've plenty of abuse from people. So I think Brad Wharton wins it because he's so good. Another thing is Brad has to do it with a lot of different people. He does it with Redzer, Paul Redmond. He did it with, over in Italy with different people. He does it with the Strawberry Ape. He's done it with Dan Hardy. He's done it with Ian Dean back in the past. He's done it with a lot of different people. And he is professional from end to end, from start to finish, from beginning to end. He's absolutely fantastic. And, shout out to my guy Brian Lacey as well. I think he does a great job. I thought Tyron Woodley did a great job this year. I think Mitch Chilson is good. I think Randy Couture. I think Randy's really good and really improved. Kenny Florian, obviously he's not at the moment, but he was at the start of the year commentating, is really good as well. Sean O'Connell, really good, really improved as well. I think Sean O'Connell. There's probably people I'm missing now, but obviously Dan Hardy is right up there as well. Jeez, Dan is brilliant. But I'm giving it to Brad Wharton, without a shadow of a doubt. Brad Wharton. This might be an all-British trio here. Judge of the year, Ben Cartledge. My guy, Ben Cartledge. I think he's, Ben always gets him right. You see him in Cage Warriors. You see him in the UFC. You see him in PFL. You see him on road to the UFC and loads of different places. And I think he's really, really good. He also does a great job, and has down through the years of educating people and, bringing along judges and, the same could be said. I'm throwing out here referee of the year, Mark Goddard. He's done a great job educating people and speaking on it, and I think improving his own game as well. I think Mark before was very, maybe a little bit over aggressive and was trying, and this is not a negative at all, but trying so hard to get everyone to be, in line, whereas sometimes you're better off just kind of let him do it and then reprimand him afterwards, type of thing, or just let it flow. And I think he's gotten way better at that, and he's the best at timing stoppages. He's the best at quickly knowing the rules straight away. He's the best at letting it flow. He's the best at letting it go. Everyone makes a mistake. We all make mistakes, no doubt about that, and every referee makes a mistake. You'll not find one who doesn't, but he is absolutely fantastic. But he deserves a shout out. I think, I was having a bit of a discussion online, name one UFC robbery this year. There wasn't one. There was close ones, there were two people throw to me the Carlos Leal one, which is probably the closest to it, but still and all, and then the Silgan Volkov one, that wasn't a robbery, very close again, but not a robbery. The level of judging has gone up so much. It's really, really, really good. So those two people definitely deserve a shout out as well from the Sheehan Show. So here are the award winners: the female fighter of the year, Dakota Ditcheva; the male fighter of the year, Ilia Tapuria; the fight of the year, Lewis McGrill Evans versus Garnett; Dean Garnett, the KO of the year. Max Holloway, the submission of the year. Shemaev, and then the Sheehan specials. Best bet of the year, Mitchell against Cron Gracie. Worst bet, Gorimbo versus Luque. The promotion of the year, Octagon. Matchmaker of the year, Ian Dean. The regional champ goes to Mohamed Shafi. The regional newcomer, Sean Clancy Jr. The non-UFC champion of the year, Shamil Musayev. The non-UFC newcomer of the year, Paul Hughes. The male fighter to watch for 2025 and the upcome is Jakub Kazuba. For the females, it's Paulina Wisniewska. The commentator of the year, Brad Wharton. The judge of the year, Ben Cartledge. And the referee of the year, it's not Herb Dean, it is Mark Goddard. All right, everybody, that is it for me. That is the Sheehan Show Awards for 2024. We'll see you back here. We'll do it all again in 2025.